This is the full keynote I delivered at one of the top sales events this year, breaking down the exact frameworks that I use to lead teams, generating over 1 million per month in revenue. So I walk you through the exact systems behind high performance, how to align your reps, how to build real culture, drive daily output, and scale without burning out your team. So if you're a rep, a manager, or a founder, this is going to be insanely valuable for you. So let's get into it. So what I'm going to walk you through today is for all of you to go from good to invaluable. All right. Whether it's as a founder, a sales manager, or a sales rep, or even a new appointment setter. Okay. So as I said, my name is Jack. I'll kind of walk you through my background and we'll get into it. Right. So the whole point of today is to make you guys a force multiplier, whether you're a founder ramping new salespeople, a new sales manager, an experienced sales manager, or a sales rep within an account. Now, what is a force multiplier? By definition, the effect produced by a capability that when added significantly increases the potential of that force without a proportional increase in personnel or resources, and thus enhances the probability of successful mission accomplishment, right? So that's all the fancy definition. I'll get into that within context, whether you're a sales rep or a founder, all right, or a sales manager. So this will apply to every single person here. Cool. Now, my one principle, as Riley might have told you guys, is everything you do must be a deliberate action. Now, for context, the first time that I ever heard this was from my first ever platoon commander. That was when I was in recruit training when I was like 19 years old, when I was in the British Army. And he said that to me before he went on to where he is now, which is in the UK Special Air Service, and he's in deniable operations, right? So in G Squadron, if you guys are familiar with what that is. But that's what he told me. And then I've applied that essentially to everything that I do. I believe in cause and effect, and that there's no mystery to solving something. There is a specific set of steps that you can follow, whether it's as a salesperson ramping into a new account and you've been left to sink or swim, or you're a founder trying to validate a new offer, sales manager on your first account, right? There's a correct way to do things. And after essentially committing 7 days a week for the last 3.5, 4 years, I've got it down to a decent science when it comes to ramping salespeople. And it's why I've also had good success coaching salespeople privately. Cool. Now, what is this going to do for you guys? It's going to give you guys defensibility. So seasonal consistency of your income, whether you're a salesperson or you're a founder, right, with a sales team. It's going to give you proof, right? So if you're a sales rep coming onto a new account, or you're trying to get a job on a new account, especially one with high commission or high on-target earnings, you're going to have evidence that you can show in metrics and in outcomes, as opposed to the standard hiring loom where you promise that you're going to give your full commitment, right? You're going to be able to show that in metrics and in outcomes. And as a founder, if you have that proof, you're going to be able to attract better talent into your account as well. And from what I'll go through, you also won't need rock stars to get them into KPI and get them singing and dancing. Does that make sense? Cool. Now, what it'll also give you is leverage, right? Whether you're a salesperson or a founder, systems that actually scale without chaos, and you'll have superior talent and you'll be able to build that talent as opposed to playing the hiring lottery, right? So this is how you build professional equity, where your work will compound instead of resetting every quarter, or whenever a salesperson decides to leave your account, or whenever you go to a new account as a salesperson. Cool. Now, just for context on my background, because I understand there's a lot of people here that don't know me, I've generated 30 million US online, so something like 50 million Oz in revenue directly through managing myself, right? Not through like sort of like passive partnerships or like, for example, right now I'm managing a team that does 7 million a month, but I don't take credit for that. I take credit for just the revenue I'm generating within the team that I manage. So that's 30 million US generated myself across 11 industries, and I've managed 330 sales reps. I know for a fact there's a good handful of people in the audience that I've managed or I privately coach. And you can see some of the accounts there. That said, there's a handful of accounts that I'm working with right now under NDA, 9-figure accounts that I just don't have there. But that's enough about me. So let's get into it. Cool. Now, you guys are probably wondering like what I really learned out of sales and how it actually benefited me within sales. So you don't have to go through crawling through the mud, going under barbed wire or just getting shouted at. You can just get me express delivering what I learned from the military. And the number one thing that I learned is that you will need to be cured of your stubbornness through disappointment, right? Has anyone heard that before? Right? So essentially, for myself, being a strong-headed person, I thought, well, maybe I'm special. Maybe I can do it my way. Maybe I'll figure it out. Like it should just work out. But I can promise you, the success as a salesperson or running a sales team, validating an offer into product market fit, it's already validated. It's your ability to model what is already excellent and what is already working. And oftentimes you just need to be going through a process where you think you can do it your way, and then you'll be cured of that stubbornness through disappointment. Does that make sense, that first point? Cool. The second thing I learned is that you can only run as fast as you can navigate. So this pertains to obviously the military. When you're navigating with map and compass or GPS or whatever it is, if you are running like a headless chicken through the forest, trying to run faster than your skills to navigate, you will get lost. And it's the same as a salesperson or a manager, right? You can't just like throw a sales rep onto an account and go, yeah, like, come on, let's get him in KPI, let's throw him on full volume and expect him to perform at scale, right? That doesn't create predictability. All right. And as a salesperson, it's the same down to the most granular thing. You can apply this principle when you're on a sales call. You shouldn't be moving faster through the sales process than your ability to pick up on what the prospect is putting down. Cool. Now, what looks like aggression is actually just precision, right? Whether it's you're in, if you any of you guys do martial arts, you throw a punch in a focused area, then you're going to have a lot more effect than just swinging, right? And it's the same with sales ramping, with being a sales rep, ramping yourself. And I'll get into exactly how and what you need to focus on to have that precision, all right? Another big one, which I see that a lot of salespeople don't do, is they don't look outside of sales to gain their own competitive edge. They basically just reason by analogy, looking at like they're happy to watch the next role play or they just want to get their hands on the next call recording from some sales rep, right? I can tell you now, most of the value that I've been able to deliver to salespeople has come from outside of sales, right? I can look right now on my bookshelf and I think I have like one book on sales. Yeah, how have I managed to generate $50 million in revenue, right? It's because I learned from principles and it's the way that I help all my clients, whether it's sales coaching, sales management, or what have you, right? Now, the fifth point, and this especially pertains to really both sales reps and those who are hiring people like a manager or a founder, but aptitude is always going to be superior to talent. So if you're a sales rep going for an account and you have to put together a custom loom, what you want to convey obviously is your results, but in lieu of that, especially if you're a less experienced salesperson, is to show your trainability, right? You can sit there and say like how hungry you are, that's great, but ultimately what the person interviewing you wants to know is will they be able to get you into KPI? Because they're going to be putting ad spend onto you when they don't have proof necessarily that you're going to work out on that account, right? So what you want to show, the single center of gravity or the belief that you want to seed into the person's mind is that you have the aptitude to learn fast, right? And then you as a sales manager, which is going to be a heavy part of this presentation, is how to make sure that you can help them do that, right? And that's modeling gold standard, which I'll get into. Now, all of your decisions must be downstream of value creation. Now, what I mean by that, for example, is you've got to not look at like, well, what am I willing to do to like kind of ramp this salesperson into KPI, right? Or what am I willing to do to get into KPI in this account? And you kind of just like, oh, you end up doing the minimum necessary because you work from how little can I do, right? I ask you to shift your beliefs when you're hiring someone and look at what is the perfect scenario that would guarantee that the salesperson gets into KPI, right? And then you work back from there to do the least you can. Obviously, remove what's stupid, the standard like Elon Musk design process. Remove what's not necessary, but don't start from how little can I do. Start from what needs to be done, and then just consider working back. And then over time with experience, you'll get more efficient at it, and you'll see what you need to cut out, right? So that's just an example where all your decisions need to be downstream of value creation. And it's the same when you like down to the smallest thing. Like I said, like if you're in Slack as a sales rep, just consider if like, yeah, sure, there's one thing of having good culture and like joking, but sometimes you just got to really consider, does that need to be posted? And does that compound the culture of making money, right? So if you're a sales rep, this still applies. And then the last point, this was something that was been told to me by the commanding officer of Australian Special Operations, is that he'd met billionaires, millionaires across multiple industries and outside of business in the military. The single attribute that all successful people agreed they have is laser-like focus, right? And that just goes to that point of precision, all right? And everything you do must be a deliberate action. Cool. Between a professional and an amateur salesperson is that this is just something I've only seen in sales, in like remote sales, but no professional athlete will just show up on game day unprepared. Yet most salespeople do. It's like, like salespeople making over 10K, they want to make over $10,000 a month, yet they don't study outside of just taking calls. Like, in what world do you not go get a degree and you just expect to make like a doctor's salary? Or in what world do you not do anything outside of calls? So if all you're doing is jumping on sales calls, blaming the leads, and then saying it's a crap offer, like, and you're doing nothing outside, like, how can you really expect that to happen? I can tell you now, one of my clients right now is at 84K a month as a sales rep, and the second best closer, in case you're thinking, well, maybe that offer's so cracked, the second best closer is making less than like 40. Why is that? Right? It's because of the commitment that he puts in. So it really doesn't matter how leveraged your account is. You need to be training outside of your calls. And I would also not cope on just, oh, my sales manager runs the meeting. That's my training, right? Because if he's got a team of 5, not all that time is going to be committed to you. So you need to be putting in time, and I'll get to how. But the TLDR is that you need to be listening to your calls and then listening to gold standard, which I'll get to. Okay. Professionals will train deliberately, where amateurs will hope that wanting it really bad and intensity will make up for a lack of actual structure. And this pertains to sales managers ramping new reps and reps ramping themselves into the account. Okay. You just need to ask yourself, what sacrifices are you unwilling to make? Because what that will define is the reason why you don't get hired over the next guy. Right? Cool. So the first principle I want to walk through is ramping is your responsibility. So ramping is simply just ownership. So for sales reps, you cannot expect to be carried. There is plenty of accounts that I have private coaching clients in that are doing over like 1.5 million a month. And I see some of the DMs from the manager, and they're just, you just got to jump into the account and hope and pray that you get in there. So if you want to make that opportunity work when you do get an offer like that, where you're going to be making 50, 60 grand a month US, you need to be familiar with how to ramp yourself, okay, into an account. And that is what I'll go through today. For managers, you need to create the environment and actually hold the bar where ramping is not a lottery. It's a predictable process that you've validated. So you don't need rock stars that you got to hope and pray you get some A player who, if you're an A player, you'll probably know this. You're out of a job for like 20 minutes, right? They're not just sitting around for you to be able to hire willy-nilly. I've created a career, that 30 million US, out of hiring B players with fantastic attitude, right? And then the ramping process is what turned those people from B players to A players. And funnily enough, B players are the people that will stick around when you get to A player 3 times as long as someone you found at A player, right? So you need to ask yourself again, what am I refusing to do that would make me or my people undeniably successful? Right? Professionals will remove uncertainty by removing the actual reasons for failure. All right, quick pause and then we'll get back to the video. If you do over $1 million a year and you want your sales team to scale predictably, I run one-to-one sales management consulting done with you. You can apply at the link. We onboard a few managers each month, so you can grab a slot and then we'll install your one-to-one system together. Now back to the video. Cool. Now, principle number 2 is the precision will always beat hours or volume. So what you want to do is track one controlled change per problem set during that salesperson's ramping, and then evaluate it and evaluate the change with deliberate volume, which means you don't just throw the salesperson onto the calendar at full volume, right? You want to obviously validate their skills in the beginning with 5 to 10 calls, and then you obviously increase that. That is depending on your account. It may be an account where like a fully ramped salesperson has 12 calls a day. It may be an account where fully ramped salesperson does 5 calls a day, right? But you want to ramp them with the deliberate volume, which can allow you and them to get better through time, through the loop that I'll walk through of improving a salesperson, right? Because accuracy will actually compound faster than raw volume. Sometimes you need to go slow to go fast. Okay. Precision will always compound where hours are finite. This pertains as well for if you're trying to simply use volume to get better at sales. No matter how good you get, let's say you do get amazing, and let's say you close every single person on your calendar, you still only will have 24 hours in a day. It will cap eventually, right? Which is why you need precision and leverage and a deliberate action through your ramping, through your training, and this is ongoing evergreen even when you're the top rep, right? So you want to be focusing on signal-rich actions or high-yield behaviors that are tracked, reviewed, and iterated, where everything else is just drift. You don't want to fall into natural soldiering. What that is if you give someone like 8 hours to do a task, how long do you think it's going to take for them to do that task? 8 hours, right? But you'll see if you give someone 3 hours to do a task, they'll take 3 hours, right? Within reason, obviously. But what you want to do is have everything be deliberate and not like just throw volume on them because they'll probably find that they can take that long to get into KPI. Whereas if you give them, you need to make a sale on your first 10 calls and then you slowly ramp it up to KPI from there, just that alone is going to work. For context, one of my last clients, the first thing I did when I came into the account is simply just double the AOV KPI, right? And then without even training, it literally just went up just by setting it, right? It's these small things like that just being precise about. I had identified that AOV was the constraining data point in their KPIs, and simply just by at first doubling the AOV KPI, everyone else stepped up, right? So for managers, you're not managing your time, I like trying to do as much as possible every single day and making your job last 8 hours a day. Like one of my clients used to make this job of managing one account take like 8 hours a day. And it's at this point now where, again, you couldn't scale that unless you work 16 hours a day and your hair starts falling out, right? Whereas if you can get the job down to 3 to 4 hours a day, it's more accurate. Great, you're already performing better there. And then you can scale that when you scale the amount of salespeople on your team. Cool. So you're managing iteration speed, your ability to make accurate decisions, and then the next one, right? Cool. Principle number 3 is this is really where it gets into for you guys as sales reps, because I know there's a lot of sales reps here, and you can go ahead and use this like literally today to improve your data, or if you're ramping into a new account, right? Which is to find the critical phase. Personally, myself, I don't have some unique mechanism sales process, right? I just use what's worked for me, and I find value from every single sales coach I see out there. But one thing that I do know and that I do stand by, I will die on this hill, is that whatever sales process you use, ultimately at the end of the day, the prospect and what's going on in their mind and the conversation in their head is the one you need to adhere to, right? So you need to ask yourself, what are the 1 to 2 beliefs that have to exist in the prospect's mind for them to commit, right? Because if you understand the conversation in the prospect's head, they're not seeing every phase of the sales call, right? So, for example, with a sophisticated buyer, there's a few key sales or few key beliefs you need to make in their mind. The first one is essentially an admittance that the person either can't solve the problem on their own or you can do it better, right? From there, you need to sell them on the actions that they'll be able to take when they're at their goals. And then from there, the biggest sell you need to make with a sophisticated buyer is the superiority of the mechanism, right? Or the superiority of your solution, because they're not in an incredible amount of pain. They simply have unfulfilled desire, right? And the pull of your solution is what is the center of gravity that it's going to get them to buy. Okay. So you need to identify what are the beliefs in your prospect's mind on your account and the conversation in their head. And I can tell you, you probably don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you are not the top rep on the account, and there's someone on the account that's absolutely crushing it, i.e. like making 80 grand a month when someone else is making 40, or someone's making 20 when everyone else is making 10, you probably want to ask that person, right? And you can do that as well through what I'm going to lay out, i.e. gold standard modeling, right? So once you identify the 1 to 2 beliefs, if you think about it now, what are the 1 to 2 beliefs your prospects need to believe to buy? So another example for like a trading account, right? If you sell trading, it's a much akin to like e-commerce. If you sell e-com, those two biz ops are in the prospect's mind the most commoditized biz ops. Like everyone sells a trading course. This is in their mind. I'm not saying that people do, but they believe, oh, there's loads of trading courses. There's everyone selling trading. And that's why you hear language on the sales call like, yeah, there's loads of these coaches out there, right? Now, trading or e-com, it's believed to be commoditized. So what you need to do is realize that the prospect thinks that they can DIY very easily, even though it's not like DIY, they're going to do it on their own. They believe they're able to do it without you, right? So that is a single belief that you need to dismantle on the call. Like this whole presentation isn't going to be about like all sales coaching and stuff like that. This is just to give you an example of what you need to nail down when you're either building your ramping Bible as a sales manager or you're ramping into an account. You need to understand these beliefs. And then what that's going to give you the answer to is the phases of the call that you need to make sure that you put 80% of your focus on when ramping a new salesperson or you yourself ramping. Okay. So once you identify those beliefs, you'll identify the 1 to 2 phases of the call that establish those beliefs. And that becomes what I consider the critical phase. It's the 20% of the call that drives 80% of the outcome, right? So for example, depending on what nomenclature you use for sales process, objection finding or pre-handling, which is typically the top of, if you call it solution awareness, that phase, as an example, within a trading account, is probably the central center of gravity on whether or not you will make that sale. Okay. The reason why is because, as I said, the prospects believe it's commoditized. So when you go into that phase, if the prospect comes out of that phase believing anything other than my strategy isn't going to get me to my goal, they have a better strategy. If you don't have that belief, they will not buy. Right? That's the entire center of gravity. It's creating a logical stream of acceptances in the prospect's mind that a strategy is number one. So if the prospect says do something along the lines of, well, it was just my mindset, the belief that you need to seed into their mind that is that how would you need to have a fantastic mindset if your strategy was so good? Right? Once you can get that belief in the prospect's mind through that phase, you're pretty much good. Right? The rest of the call just can go pretty damn average. And in ramping, because we have limited time, right? We need, as opposed to drowning the salesperson in an entire CRM course, if you put focus on that, that is what's going to get money in their pocket, get them selling and get you profitable. And then the rest of that stuff, like, is it really critical if they didn't put the prospect in the right status? I understand if you have automations and stuff like that, but is it really critical? At the end of the day, they need to make money, right? And you need to really drill down to what is the center of gravity of the sale. So you need to focus 80% of your time with that salesperson in ramping on that phase, right? So once you know this, you can design your training around it, allocate 80% of your time in ramping the new salesperson to this alone for outsized returns. Cool? Perfect. So principle 4 is to train the belief. So obviously I laid out the steps in the previous principle. We're going to drill into it now to how we do that. So to do that, you need to gone are the days in my belief that of like, at least what I was getting told in like 2022 is that you don't need to understand the product. You don't need to understand it that much, right? My personal belief based on experience is that if you have deep industry know-how and you will have heavy weight on the call, right? Especially with a sophisticated buyer, right? So you need to have deep industry know-how. And as a manager in your ramping, you want to give your salespeople market context and common objections that are granular. Because if you've ever been a sales call on a new account, one of the worst things you can hear is a question, not because you don't know how to handle it as a salesperson, but because you just don't know the industry enough, right? So you need to set the salespeople up for success with industry know-how, i.e. with the Bible. So you can see example there, right? That first image on the left is just me explaining value objections in detail. That is on the right, the emotional pattern of the sales process. And at the bottom, just an example of some gold standard core reviews, which we'll get into. And it's probably going to be one of the biggest leverage things you can do. Right. You want to have an objectives explainer as well. So what each phase has to achieve. So the salesperson knows what good sounds like and if they need to loop or if they can continue. Right. And then the gold standard call vault. So you want to have 3 to 8 gold standard calls from the top sales rep. And this is from someone ideally not the founder who can just throw around coaching statements and do a heavy consultative style. Like someone that is not the founder who can sell to cold customers at scale very well. Those calls are literally the 80/20 of this 80/20 of this ramping. Okay. So from the top sales closer, from the top closer or from the sales manager. That makes sense? Perfect. Principle 5 is to define and model excellence, right? So all in simplicity, all getting someone into KPI is giving them awareness of what good sounds like, getting them to model that because they can't model it. Like if I ever give a sales call to a new rep or a less experienced sales rep, one of my calls, like anyone really experienced, like for example, Chase, I sent a call to him the other day and he was just like telling he actually reviewed it and he was telling me like he could see what was I was going to do before I even started doing it. Whereas if I give that to an inexperienced salesperson, they'll just say, "Oh yeah, it was good, and that word track was you said was really good," right? Because they're just not aware of what I'm actually doing. So if that person was actually ramping onto my own account, that was me selling my own offer. But if they were ramping onto my own account, I would provide a Loom walkthrough review of my own call and explain what I'm doing so that inexperienced salesperson can raise their awareness. From there, and only then can they model it, right? So if you just throw in your ramping Bible and you have like a couple call recordings of a couple of laydowns, it's not going to work. You need to have the call, right? The raw call so they can watch it afterwards and listen to those in the morning and all that good stuff. But you need to support it with a tool that will raise their awareness so they can model it and then they'll get into KPI. All right. So you need to define what excellence looks like, make it visible, and the feedback loop will be when they're in and they're doing their calls, you review their calls, you make the corrections through the looms, right? Doing call reviews, right? And you can get these done at scale without having to do them on meetings just by doing loom reviews and pump them out. You want to get proof that the salesperson watched that, which is not very hard in Loom. You can see if they've viewed it, but I always ask for points feedback. I'm sure there's some salespeople in the crowd right now just thinking, yeah, remember when Jack made me do this? Is you send the call review to them and then you ask for points, right? From there, you know they've learnt it. You put them on their next calls and then you review it again. And this loop repeats. You do this all the while pushing them towards modeling gold standard, and then they'll get into KPI. This is the 80/20 of ramping, okay? So if your reps don't know what good sounds like, they will regress to average. Make sense? Cool. Principle number 6 is context will always multiply skills. So knowing your client and the solution at depth will make your questions sharper and your conviction unshakable. So we achieve this through understanding the industry know-how, as I mentioned. But what is that? It just really breaks down into two pillars. The first is the client, right? You want to understand the first, second, and third order consequences of their problem. So when I say industry know-how, I don't just mean how my software works or how my ecom course works that I sell. It's understanding the prospect is more than 50% of it, right? And understanding the first, second, and third order consequences of their problem, because what that's going to allow you to do is ask questions and sell to cold customers. Because all a laydown really is someone that is most aware of their problems, of your solution, of your product, all that good stuff, and the selling's already been done. But if you want to make like double your commissions, like an order of magnitude improvement, you're not probably going to get that from relanguaging your like building a gap question, right? You're going to get that by understanding the first, second, and third order consequences of the prospect's problem, right? So they're not surface level. And what that's going to allow you to do, even with a prospect that might be surface level at the top of the call, is ask questions that allude to getting them to say problems you know they have, right? As opposed to asking really broad scripted questions. Does that make sense? And then you need to also tie that into your solution, why your solution is superior as it relates to that client's problem, right? So for managers to put sales reps in the right position to set up for success, you need to build a knowledge bank and use meetings and training assets, i.e. the gold standard core reviews, to explain how and why your messaging works. So show the magic. Now, this is something that I got from Matt himself, is he really taught me you want to walk your salespeople through the ad sets, through the sales assets on the thank you page, on the VSL page, to help them understand where the prospect is at that time, right? And you don't have to do this every single time a new salesperson comes in. You could simply just provide this as a video in ramping, right? As opposed to just trying to gaslight your reps and keep them in a tiny little corner and just say, follow this script, it's going to work. and then just blaming them if they don't make sales, right? Turn your salespeople into end-to-end sales professionals. They understand the entire process, right? And then for sales reps, you want to understand exactly what you sell and why it matters to your client. The entire thing that matters is the conversation that is going on in their head through the entire sales process, right? So this starts before the call with the sales assets, as I laid out. Does that make sense? Perfect. Now, principle number 7 is to solve the constraint. So this is just a first principle, going back to what I said about what I learned outside of sales. I learned this when I was training up for special operations selection, right? It could, like, for example, if someone goes to special operations selection and they're super fit, mega athlete, they shoot well, they're liked by their mates, they have good teamwork, but they can't navigate to save their life. The entire like central point of special operations selection, it is going to bring out your weakness, and that is what will make you fall, right? So you don't even have to be tremendous at everything. It is about your weaknesses, right? A system's potential is limited by its most limiting subsystem. So if you look at your skill set right now and you identify what are you weakest at, realize when you start pushing the envelope of trying to make a lot more money as a sales rep, that is going to be the glaring weakness and you'll be capped, right? How do you solve that? Through data, as you guys probably know. It reveals the true constraint and it tells you exactly what training you then need to apply, as opposed to throwing random sales coaching on a salesperson just because that's what you're good at, right? You think, oh yeah, I've got really good objection handling, so I'm just going to focus on that, or just like keep just regressing back to what I'm good at. You need to look at their data, play with that data, and identify and literally just play inside of your tracker. It's simple as that to this day. I don't use sexy Looker Studios or some SaaS. I use a tracker, and as my clients know, I have a kind of a thing for these Looker Studios because literally every single client I've ever seen, it's been broken. It's missing like 50% of the revenue that should be there. I, to this day, continue to use that tracker. Sure, VA can do most of the filling out, but when I go in there, I'm going to be looking at the highest leverage move, right? So, for example, improving the pickup rate 8% is going to improve the revenue by, say, 80% overnight. It's a lot easier to improve the pickup rate with the right steps as opposed to trying to make every new salesperson a hero in objection handling, right? So you want to identify the constraint that's going to move the needle the most and then provide the asset downstream of that, right? Or you provide the data upstream and then the training downstream. So you want to prioritize ruthlessly and hit critical mass in 1 week lick before amplification. So what I mean by that is critical mass means if you're just giving like 10 minutes of this, 10 minutes of that, 10 minutes of this when it comes to objection handling or teaching the discovery, it's never going to be enough for them to improve. And this is going back to the 80-20 of ramping, right? Whereas if you focus enough on, say, objection finding or on nailing a custom presentation, they will be tremendous at it. It's pretty cut and dry as opposed to just like giving them a bit of time on that, right? And this is why, as I'll get into, I literally do not remember when was the last time for a client that I helped them ramp a sales rep where they didn't get into KPI. When there's like a typical sort of rule of thumb that like 1 or 2 in 10 sales reps like make it, right? So the whole point is to prioritize ruthlessly and then amplify with volume or more hires, right? As opposed to going, well, I want to get to 1 million a month. So with my price and I think I need 5 reps. You don't do that, obviously, right? I think everyone knows that. You should bring 1 to 2 sales reps on, validate the ramping and the sales process, and then amplify with more sales reps, right? It's very simple. So you can see there, I've laid out the tracker to me doing the call with the ramping salesperson. And then we train, and then from there, I review their calls, go back to the data, and repeat. Sweet. Now, this is like the biggest thing I think everyone can walk away with. For me, this is what's carried me through my entire career up to this point, while I've been able to have fortunate to have great success, especially this year, is the negative ROI management strategy. It's from Dan Kennedy. He has a negative ROI marketing strategy. His point is that you make your money on the front end, but you build wealth on the back end. I take that approach into sales management, right? You can see that. I don't know if you guys have seen that meme, but it has Hannibal Lecter. I don't know, a lot of Gen Z guys here. You guys might have seen that movie. But the one entrepreneur friend who's available 24/7 and responds immediately, right? That's kind of who you need to be as a sales manager. Because the hardest part of sales management should always be front loaded, where you choose, right? The best managers will invest in salespeople ahead of the curve before it becomes a problem. It's way easier to solve before they go into a pip, right? Because then they've got all this pressure, right? And you really just don't want that. You're gonna have to put in more time, and at this point, you kind of almost know it might not work. It's too late. They're burnt out. You want to start it from the start. So front load the effort, right? Now, if you're a sales manager or a founder, you are still on sales calls. It's your meetings and your call reviews. And this is why anyone here can advocate for it. When I send you a Loom, a call review, they go wild, and there's like a running joke with all of the teams that I manage that, oh, you jump on a one-to-one with Jack and then you jump off the call and you go make a sale, right? So I'm still selling to this day. I obviously sell my own offer, but I believe I'm still selling it to this day, with through all of the sales reps that I manage, because I transcend upon the salesperson the type of energy and focus that they're going to take into the next call, right? So inadvertently still selling, right? The sales management is not just either babysitting or sitting back, taking a bit of rev share, scaling it up to 100K a month, right? You need to put in. And when you put in, it's going to get a lot easier over time. And I'll get to the benefits in a bit. But I'm literally talking 80% of your time as a manager should be invested in reviewing calls based on the constraints, and you'll get outsized returns in 30 days. It is the most profitable thing you can do. It is not uh, rewriting the script, some new sexy process. Like, sure, if your thank you page sucks, you need to improve it. But I can tell you now, I can see so many sales managers that just trying to like CRM pipeline, all that stuff. As soon as I hear that, they're trying to make automations in the CRM. It doesn't push money that far, right? What you need to do is focus on people. Sales is a business of people. Okay. So you need to stay in close proximity to your people and do not have a set and forget management style. Again, just focusing on yourself. Going back to that point I said about all of your decisions must be downstream of value creation, right? You can see there on the right, just some screenshots from clients and reps. You said there you weren't lying about 24/7. Yeah, well, just that it doesn't go unnoticed at all. I genuinely appreciate it. And then I have literally probably got 100 of those. Solid call, bro. Thank you. Just close another deal after the call. If you're not getting that, you still got work to do with management, right? That makes sense. Now, how long we got for time, Riley? I'm just
Hey,
going to push
Jack.
through. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
keep pushing, man. Keep pushing. Crushing
Okay,
it.
cool. Because I can tell you guys that just break off on a little bit of a story. I keep it short, but there is more points, right? One of my clients, he's actually in attendance today, but I'll keep his name private unless he wants to just share it. I have taken him from a closer, right? 2.5 years ago. He was a closer. He came onto the account. He wasn't great at first. I had to put him on a pip, right? From there, I actually put the time in with him on the pip. Back then, I had much less awareness of how to ramp salespeople, but I put in when I knew, which was in the pip. He got out of that, became the top sales rep on the account. And then after all that hard work, 2 months later, he said he wanted to leave. And I advocated for him to do it, and I supported him in doing that because it's just the right thing to do, right? It was for no reason. It wasn't planned, but it's just the right thing to do for that salesperson. Now, lo and behold, a year and a half later, that person came back to me wanting to work with me because they just got a sales management position. All right. So again, this is just one example of the fact that like you never know when it's going to pay off over a long enough time period. I started working with that salesperson and imparting this lesson upon them. They went from closer with no experience of management, managing an account from like 200K up to as high as a million a month, right? And then now they're at the point where they're settling on a deal to get equity in the business as a sales manager. They will no longer be the sales manager. They'll have equity in the business. Cool. And it's just because I taught the same thing to them. I go above and beyond. You have to do this as a sales rep and as a sales manager. Go above and beyond for your people. And again, this is why I'm not here to like flex income or anything like that, but I do a little over 100K a month US now. And like literally half of my income is from renewals, right? I don't even have to sell to new people because I put in, right? It's a lot easier as well. Fulfillment doubling up as client acquisition sounds a lot easier than doing them separately. At the same time, you do need to focus on new sales as well. Cool. Does that make sense, guys? This is the biggest thing I can tell you guys is to put in on the front end. It will pay you back. I promise you. Don't expect anything. Just do what's right. It works. Okay. I'm going to go through 3 case in points and then we'll be good. So as a case in point for the 80/20 ramp, one of my other clients, right? He had a 5x hiring turnaround. So before his last five clients failed, or his last hires failed to get into KPI, none of them after a full ramp. The process of his ramping was just scattershot focus, equal time on all phases, sink or swim, and he kind of lacked the confidence because he didn't have an actual process, right? So what I did came in, we identified the critical phases we were talking about, driving 80% of the outcomes based on that critical belief we identified, which we identified through gold standard sales calls, right? By going back, listening to the fantastic sales calls, working out what belief was seeded, how it was done, i.e. what phase, and then we rebuilt the ramping around that one focus only. And from there, we saw a 300% hiring success rate. So from 0 out of 5 to 3 out of 3. So we cut the time to KPI down by 50%, with no increased ad spend, no more call volume or any structural changes. It was just proof that focusing ramping around the critical constraint will compound the results with without more input. Second case in point is the 80/20 ramping with rep. I took a client from 0 to 330K US in the first 30 days. And the client themselves that I was working directly with had zero experience managing accounts, and their offer had not been sold high ticket. It was not yet in PMF. They had no proof of concept with the sales process. And what he was going to do is just kind of throw them a script and play the hiring lottery, right? Kind of hope and pray for a rock star. What we did instead was we identified the critical phase that would drive 80% of the outcomes based on the beliefs. Now, because we didn't have gold standard calls to listen to, we identified it through deep market research. Okay. And then we built the ramping around that phase. From there, 3 out of 3 hires into KPI, 330K cash, and nearly 480K in rev, right? In the first 30 days. And again, just proof that focusing ramping around the critical constraint compounds results, even when the sales process has not even been validated. I'm telling you guys, you have to do this, right? Now, in a final point, just to bring the point home again, I do not even have a tremendous amount of experience as a customer success manager or scaling that part of people's businesses. All right. I've done it twice, and both times it worked because I took that principle from sales, in this case, just from business principles. The client had a 15% churn on their subscription product. The DMs, I want you guys to listen here. The DMs were overwhelmed, yet the video calls only had a 20% attendance. Surely, if people needed so much love, they would jump on the calls. Well, what we identified is that the DMs was the critical condition of satisfaction of these clients staying inside the subscription. So they had no dedicated CSM to respond to DMs at scale. The founder was overwhelmed and they had no structured cadence. So what we did is we identified that critical condition of satisfaction, which is DM response time, that would drive 80% of the retention, right? Just based on that desire through the behavior I'd identified just from the volume of DMs that the subscription clients were sending. So what I did was built the CSM process around that desire, and literally the ramping for the CSM was exactly as I would ramp a salesperson because it's still sales, right? And the result was we took them from 15% churn down to 5% churn in 30 days, which was a 25x ROI from a single CSM hire I got from Upwork, right? I just trained them. No increase in ad spend or volume, literally $10 an hour, right? Proof that focusing solely on CSM ramping was the critical constraint compounded the retention and the MRR. Does that make sense? It needs to be deliberate. I'll leave you guys with this. You need to choose your suffering, either pain now or pain later. For context, that photo is of me. I had been in Afghan for like 7 straight months during COVID. I had no R&R, no time off. The second time I went to Afghan, I got back. My coach put it on me. He said, "You're going to compete in like, I think 3 weeks." And what did I do? Did I decide, oh, well, it's like a short, I just got to sort of see what happens. Hopefully, hope and pray, play the lottery. No. Instead, I was training 2, 3 hours a day and cooking in the sauna on a Friday night under the belief I knew that that guy was probably hanging out with his family. But I chose my suffering. And that's why I submitted him in 29 seconds. Cool. So you can suffer the short-term pain of discipline or the long-term pain of stagnation. Either way, the people oftentimes, especially sales managers that are protecting their energy, often end up doing more work later, fixing what they avoided. It's way better to like choose your own suffering and do it before you get on a pip, right? So just front load the effort. Front loading the discomfort will compound the ROI and your opportunity. And at the end of the day, man, I think this is a big one for everyone here is that you never get what you want today. It is always about setup. Just think the outcome of every single person's here's next sales call was already decided about 90 days ago. Okay, cool. Again, the unifying principle is that everything you do as a salesperson is a deliberate action. Now, all you guys, if you hit this QR code, right? I've got in there a full SOP on how and when to review calls, right? Like a master. There is a deliberate way down to literally how you deliver feedback to salespeople based on their experience, right? There is an SDR coaching tracker in there, a sales rep coaching tracker in there, a full SOP on building the ramping Bible and the timeline and the cadence to do all this, right? So it has the how-to, but it also has a done-for-you template. So you'll learn how to build it and then you can just take it, right? There's no fucking like lead capture. Just go grab it, take it. Cool. And then as far as live videos, there's a fixing 1 mil a month sales team training session in there. So me reviewing a training with the 1 mil a month sales team and then a 1 hour call review from me. And I literally just so it's like up to date for you guys, I did that review yesterday. So that's the most recent level of my skill, reviewing a sales call, right? It is full end to end, every phase of the call. Cool. Thanks, guys. What I'm going to do now is just pass the Q&A. So let me unshare my screen. We'll be good. Okay. Solid. I'm a little bit delayed, I think, but we're good.
Could you hear the clap? That's the main thing.
Yep, I can hear you now. Perfect.
Yep.
It's just a little bit delayed. Let's go.
Could
Let's do it.
you hear the clapping? That's what I want to know.
No, I couldn't. You guys have to do it again.
Come on, you gotta be louder than that. Come on, guys.
All good. Thanks, guys. I hope it was valuable. And like I said, I'll probably discuss it for this Q&A, but I mean it. Two things. You might have seen the bottom of my Instagram. Like I'm not above anyone reaching out to me and DMing me just to chat. I'm there to help, right? For me, it's again the negative ROI management strategy. If it means that you put a good word in for me in 3 years, great. If it doesn't, no dramas. Things are working out well for me, right? I want to just be able to help. It's not hard, and it honestly gives you moat in this industry because I see a lot of people don't care about other people. So I feel like it's moat for me. It's like my IP. And outside of that as well, if you're ever in Dubai, you got one free admission to steak dinner. If we do chat in DMs and if you do come out here, we'll go to dinner, we'll catch up or something. Cool. But yeah, do you guys have any questions?
Yeah, who's got a question? Yeah, you got to do it in here too.
What, like this?
Yeah, just talking to both at the same time.
Okay, cool. Yeah, a question for you, Jack. Like when you talk about the most critical phase on a call, for example, like you're saying pre-handling for a trading offer, how do you like actually determine the most like critical part to focus on in a call? And like what data do you actually use for that? Is that like from the gold standard call or what's that from?
Yes, exactly. So what you want to be doing is listening to the gold standard call, right? So for example, can you give the mic back to him just so I can keep back and forth?
Yeah.
So what's your account?
I'm on like a new account, so I'm gonna be ramping up this Wednesday. But like
Yeah, okay. What
a BizOp offer, so like AI
BizOp?
agents.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's pretty similar across all BizOps. So what is the general solution? Like what is it?
Make money online through like an AI agency model.
Okay, cool. Then you got to look at the sophistication of the people. Are they going from 0 to 1 or they have an existing AI agency and want to make it better?
It's both, but in most cases it's from 0 to 1.
Okay, then you need to, with those people, it's obviously selling on the opportunity, right? And you need to, if it's an unsophisticated buyer, you need to get them to the point where they realize that obviously the 9 to 5 is not going to get them there, right? Or get them there as easily. You want to identify if the person's already making 2 million a year, it's going to be unfulfilled desire, not pain. So you want to go on the superiority of the solution. Therefore, the presentation is just the device or the phase that is going to seed that belief of the superiority. If there's 0 to 1, then obviously your discovery is going to be a heavy part of it. And depending on how, again, I haven't done deep research on it, but I would do it in like a couple hours. Depending on the status quo, i.e., what are the other competitor offers out there? How much do the prospects, even the unsophisticated ones, believe that they can do it on their own, or they can just go to anyone and do a cheap $100 a month Discord to do it. If that's the case, then your objection finding is going to be a critical phase where the prospect comes to the agreement that your solution is pretty much the superior way to get there. That is why on your thank you page, there is a mechanism via sell, because when you're selling an opportunity like BizOp, you're simply selling on why your specific way is the best way to make money. Oftentimes, again, you'd have to like really listen to calls, but how much do these people actually care that they're building an AI agency as opposed to getting financial freedom, right? So with those people, you don't need to go so hard on the mechanism, just proving that it's easy, right? Whereas with someone who's sophisticated, like if you tried to sell me on something like an AI solution, I want to see that it's actually going to lift my business as opposed to like getting me in pain or something, which isn't just not going to happen. Right. So you need to identify if you don't have gold standard calls, like I said with that other client, market research, go on Reddit, marketing gold, right? Look at what people think about AI agencies and the objections they already have, right? And then you can tailor that into your sales process, dismantle the beliefs that you don't want, and then build the beliefs you do. But if you want to talk about it more, just DM me. We'll chop it up. All
Thanks,
right.
man. Appreciate it.
All right. Cool.
Hey man, really appreciate the session. Probably one of the most valuable ones for today. A quick
Thanks.
question. So first one is, when you're managing a team, how important is it for you to actually have experience in selling that offer versus just general experience as an
Yeah.
actual man, like a sales manager itself?
Okay. I'll ask this. When you say that, like, are you sort of talking more like that offer specifically, or in that, at least in that industry? Like, what do you feel like? Yeah, go ahead.
I guess like both. You know what I mean by
Yep.
that specifically is like,
Sure, sure. I get you.
let's say you're a
That's
sales manager
that's a,
and yeah, let's say you're a
Mhm.
sales manager and you've got 10 accounts, but you haven't specifically sold on all 10 of those types of offers or those
Okay. Yep.
opportunities.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
yeah, how important
I
is
can
it?
tell you now, man.
Yeah.
It's not. I can tell you one of the clients I have under NDA has like 54 million followers or something like that on Instagram, and they're in an industry I've never sold in. But sales is sales, right? It's the principles that you can bring, having been an excellent salesperson, coming onto it, especially these legacy businesses and like these more like less biz op style that most of the people in this room probably don't have as much experience unless you're coming from more conventional sales. But going into those, you have such a skill delta in your understanding of human behavior and what gets people to buy and tying problems. So if you are selling purely because you follow a script and you don't know why it works, and then you try and manage, that's the cause and effect reason why it won't work. Whereas if you are selling a biz op and you understood, you kind of see the forest for the trees and you understand why these people buy this, right? When you do go and replace it with an AI service or software,
Yeah, it's the fundamentals
it
of why
won't matter.
people buy.
Yeah,
Like
that's exactly right. And
that's the
then,
most, yeah.
like one of my clients right now, I think they're in attendance here today. One of my clients right now that has a sales agency, they've potentially got an opportunity with a big business they haven't sold in. But I just said, like, take your principles that are going to be superior that we've worked on, and then go deep on industry know-how, because your alchemization, your digestion of the industry know-how and the prospects is going to be better. The level of skill you have with sales, taking industry know-how, is going to be better than them having all this industry know-how and being crap at sales,
Amazing.
right? So you just need to make sure you spam and go hard in the paint on market research. And for example, this is what I did. I'd never sold a fitness offer. Negative ROI management strategy again, dude. The biggest thing I can say is before I ever got that client, I bought breakthrough advertising. I spammed it. I read it like 3 times, write notes for everything, studied like crazy, almost like I guess you could call it manifesting the account. And then like I think in 60 days I got the account, took it
Amazing.
from zero to product market fit, never sold a fitness offer. It's not to flex, it's just cause and effect. So make sure you study the industry and then be good at sales with whatever you sell. And if you follow principles, you'll crack. You'll do well.
Cool. And one more question. So with
Yeah.
regards to like the on-ramp, how
hmm
do you discern the time between like, you know, group meetings in your team versus like one-on-one attention to make sure or to
Yep.
ensure that the rep is doing the best role?
Go into the coaching tracker that I give you guys, that QR code. In there, in the rep coaching tracker on the first title page, there's a tab that literally says if the salesperson is between X and X percentage scheduled to close, then do this many meetings. If they're between this and this, do this many meetings. If they're between this and this, do this many meetings or reviews. It's purely based on their performance, right? And it's compared to the KPI. So if your KPI is say 25% scheduled to close and someone's between 0 and 10, they're obviously going to get 80-20 of the meetings and the reviews, the one-on-ones. Someone in the middle is going to get slightly less than that. And the person, for example, say gold standard rockstar might get one a fortnight, right? And then as a general rule, this is a little bit more of a general rule that works at scale. It's just 3 to 5 meetings, team meetings a week. I advocate for 5, but if you're constrained at scale, then 3 meetings a week. Are you just for context, are you at management or do you have are you the founder?
I'm a manager and closer.
Okay, perfect. Cool. Yeah. So if you're a manager, then I advocate for, like you can do 5. If you're an offer owner and you don't yet have a sales manager, rather than delegating to a sales manager pre 500K a month, you need to be involved with your salespeople, and you should probably meet 5 days a week. It's like I said, it's your sales call.
Yeah.
There's such leverage doing a 45 1-hour meeting, but have an agenda. Okay. Don't do random training. You listen to the calls based on the constraints you identify in the data. Because if you go to a meeting with a sales rep and you say, what do you want to work on? They're going to tell you unless they're a savage, they're going to tell you what they're comfortable working on.
Yeah, got it.
Right? Whereas if you review their calls and then you jump on the meeting, you can just decide the agenda of the training, and it's going to be very pointy and you're going to get a lot out of it. So you don't have to do that many meetings.
Yeah, got it. Thank you, mate.
Is that all right? Cool.
Beautiful. All right, guys, come on, let's get it up. Jack, let's get it up.
Thanks, guys. Awesome.
Jack, thank you, brother. It's been a pleasure.
No worries, man.
Is there any
My pleasure.
final words from you?
No, just jump in on that QR code, check it out. And yeah, DM me on Instagram if you have any questions. But really well done to all you guys investing in yourselves. I hopefully just one of the pieces of advice I gave you today will 100x the ROI on the investment you made. But well done, guys.
Thank you, Jack.
Speak to you soon. See you guys. All right, thanks for watching. I hope you found this video valuable. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. I check every single one. And if you're someone who wants speed and real implementation, whether you're a founder, a sales manager, or even a closer who wants to level up, there's links in the description where you can book a call and apply to actually work with me directly. And if you want to keep learning, here's the next video I recommend. You can watch it now.